In this lesson, let's talk about our wand tools. I'm going to browse and bridge. We're going to reopen number 17. Now we should be fine in terms of what it looks like because we did set the white balance to daylight and it remembers that. I'm going to just open it up. And remember, it does make a copy. I'm going to double click on the hand tool, which will just expand it in my window. You have your magic wand right over here, the magic wand tool, and you have the quick selection tool. If you want to get to them, you press the W. If you want to cycle, you press the shift key in the W. Let's start with the good old magic wand tool. Let's start with our options at the top. We have the basic 4 buttons: normal, add, subtract, and intersect. We have a sample size, and to me this is rather important. When you click with the magic wand tool, by default you're selecting one single pixel. If you're selecting an area that is a solid color, that's probably fine. But in the real world, there are variances. I like using 3x3 average. I think that gives me a better look at what I'm trying to sample. Next one over is tolerance. Now the default is 32, so let's start playing around here. You can go in tolerance from 0, which means no tolerance whatsoever, to 255, which means everything. The brightness of a pixel combined with a few other elements runs from 0 to 255. When you click with the magic wand tool, it selects based on your sample and begins spreading out. When it achieves the goal of getting all of those pixels within a confined area, it stops selecting. Now let me turn contiguous on. We're going to talk about that in a second. That by default is on. You also have sample all layers. If you have more than one layer, we don't. And you have anti-aliasing backing up over here, which in most cases I leave on because it creates a nicer edge on things that are not horizontal and vertical. So I got a tolerance of 32 and contiguous on, and I come over here with a 3x3 average and click. That's pretty cool. I mean, look, it went around the buildings, got all kinds of stuff. Didn't get everything, but it got a lot of stuff because the tolerance was set to 32. Now remember our trick of holding the shift key to add to a selection. So if I hold the shift key down and get down here and click, look at that, 2 clicks. I knocked out that sky. You say, well, you got this right here, and that's part of that antenna. I think I'm going to get rid of the antenna, but I don't want to click again. I'm afraid I might over-select. So I'm going to do something that I do all the time. I'm going to switch tools. I'm going to go into my regular old lasso tool, hold down the shift key, and just draw a circle around those areas. Now imagine attempting to do what we just did using the lasso tool. It would take a whole lot longer. 2 clicks and 2 fixes with the lasso tool, and we got it. Now let's talk a little bit more about tolerance. So let me go ahead and deselect, Command on a Mac, Control and Windows D. Go back into our magic wand tool and look at tolerance right up here. If I change the tolerance to 0, no tolerance whatsoever, and click, you might think that sky is really the same color. Look, when I clicked, I said to the computer, if those pixels change 1 bit, don't select anymore. And it stopped. Now, if I change the tolerance to 255 and click again, I get everything because all pixels will have a reference to brightness from 0 to 255. Now, the one exception to this is if you are working in a layer that has transparency, it won't select the transparent pixels, so that would be another way to select all the pixels in an image. Now let's take that back to 32. That seemed to work pretty good for us. What's contiguous? Well, contiguous means I'm going to select up here, but the buildings are going to hold me back from the rest of the image. And even though there might be tolerance levels based on what I selected in the sky, in the other areas, don't select those, stop at the buildings. So I'm going to turn that off. If I click again, say about here, see what happens. You've got a piece on the 2 cars and an object on the tracks in the foreground center. What that means is select anywhere in the image that particular tolerance based on the sample that I selected. Sometimes that's a very valuable thing to know that you have. So the magic wand tool allows us to select based on brightness levels of the pixels and color based on a tolerance level. And that one can really save you a lot of time. Let me turn that back on, but let me come over here to our other tool, quick selection. what it allows me to do is select areas by dragging and painting. Now you will notice our tools have changed a little bit. We have 3 buttons up here, which is normal, add, and subtract. The default on this one is add, so as you paint, it keeps adding to the selection. So that one probably you should leave on. We do have a brush size right here. The easiest way to change your brush size is use the left and right bracket keys. Now you can use that option up there if you want, but it's a little bit easier. What that means is a greater sampling area. The smaller the brush size, the more precise it's going to be. The larger, the more broad brush it's going to be. Do you want to sample all layers? Well, I only have 1 layer, so it doesn't matter. Auto Enhance takes a little bit more time as you are using the tool, but it does a better job. So if you've got a fast microprocessor, leave that one on. And if we come over here and begin painting, watch. Look at that. Not too bad for moving your brush around. Now we have 2 areas that we didn't get, and they are inside this area here and this area over here. So if I get over here and click, it actually took out a lot more than what I wanted. So I'm going to undo, Command or Control Z. And what I'm going to do here is I think I'm going to go back to my Magic Wand tool, and I'm going to hold down the Shift key and click in that area. And this one seemed to work, so I'm going to leave that one alone. It's not just the tools themselves. We've talked about this. It's using them in conjunction with other things that really makes this work for you. Now, since we have that sky selected, such as it is, we want to put in a better sky. If I press the Delete key now, we're on a background, so that's not going to work. I can come over here and double click on the background, we've done this, and convert it into a layer by clicking OK. And here's another way to do that. Drag the lock to the trash can. Instant layer. It doesn't look any different, but it allows for movement and transparency. So if I press Delete, I've lost the sky. I can now replace it with another one. I'm going to press Undo. But there's a difference between deleting and filling. So if you press Delete on a layer, it deletes whatever's there if it's selected. If you hold down the Shift key and press Delete, and incidentally, that's the backspace key on a Windows keyboard, Delete key on a Mac, we get the fill options. Now, if you forget the shortcut, and that's not unusual, go up to the word Edit and go down to Fill right here. Now, in Fill, we can say we have an area selected, and what do we want to fill it with? I don't want it transparent. I want to fill it with something. So you have foreground, background color. You have color, which means any color you want. I love content aware, but that wouldn't work with us here. Pattern, history, black, 50% gray, and white. Let's do pattern. I can click here to get a pattern. And you've got these right here. You can click here and pick up all kinds of other patterns if you want to. I'm going to go with this one right here and click OK. See what happens. Now that's what I call psychedelic. Let me go ahead and undo that. If you don't get the undo you want, you can come up here. We are in the Essentials workspace and back up just like this. So now we're kind of back to where we were. What I'm going to do is go back into the option to fill. So I'm going to press the Shift key and the Delete key. This time I'm going to do 50% gray and click OK. Let me go ahead and close this up too. In order to achieve what I want to show you next, I'm actually going to come over here and make sure that I have the foreground here as a 50% or somewhere around there gray. Now I can do it from here just by clicking, or I can come up here and just choose one of the colors. Now the reason I'm doing that is the filter I'm going to show you requires you have a foreground and background color to do this. So I'm going to go up to the word filter on the pull down menu, and I'm going to go down to render clouds. We have an apocalyptic scene now through selection. Selection is going to make or it's going to break whatever you do if you're trying to change something. So I'll tell you what, let's close this. Let's not save it though. And move on.